Welcome everyone. This is Andrew Daly of MGI Research, and this session is Revenue Intelligence, a Chief Accounting Officer's Journey. For many organizations, the adoption of the new revenue standards was a primary driver for investing in RevRec tools, and it was really, the effort was focused around just adherence to the standard. For a select few, however, the adoption of ASC 606 was just the beginning of a very focused effort to give finance and the business greater revenue intelligence, the ability to make critical decisions affecting quarterly revenue results while in the quarter. To share the experience of how one chief accounting officer managed both a successful IPO and has in the process of flipping revenue accounting from a retrospective task to a proactive business enabler, I'm delighted to be joined by Jagnu Bhatia, the Chief Accounting Officer of Zscaler. Jagnu, welcome to the Monetize Forum.
Andrew, thank you for having me. Really excited to join you.
So for starters, give us a sense of Zscaler and your mandate when you joined the company.
Andrew, Zscaler is well known to the marketplace. It's the largest security cloud in the world. We operate a ZTNA network, which is the Zero Trust Exchange, which is the Zero Trust Exchange for best of the best enterprises in the world, from secure web gateway, cloud firewall, digital exchange, software-based VPN, you name it all. So yeah, very excited to be here.
And when you joined, what was your mandate coming into the company?
When I joined the company, it was a really small company, close to $80 million in revenue. Today we are in 600 million plus revenue range. And the main mandate was twofold. In the name of Zscaler is the scalability, the zenith of scalability, is to scale the revenue operations of the company, as well as to prepare the company to go public. So we had a twofold mandate to make sure we can capture the market rapidly as customers move to the cloud journey, as well as to prepare the market, to prepare the company to go public.
Perfect. So when you came in as part of that IPO process, you formally placed a request with FASB and your auditors for Zscaler to be a very early adopter of 606. Why? Give us the exact timing and why did you do that?
Yes, so we actually went to the SEC, as part of our IPO process. But sometime in 2017, early part of the calendar 2017, we were getting started to prepare for our IPO. Just for timing purpose, we went public in March of 2018. So at that time, 606 was not applicable to us yet. As a private company, we could only adopt it starting August 2017 onwards. But we wanted to get started. We wanted to present our financials in the next gen, I would say, accounting standard. So we went to the SEC and we requested, we don't want to confuse our investors between a pre-606 filing and then a post-606 filing. So we'll become the guinea pig ourselves. We'll early adopt. So please permit us to early adopt, even though it is not applicable to us, because we envision ourselves to be a public company down the road, and we want to play by the rules that the larger public companies do. So we early adopted, and if you go into the public domain, you will not see any financials of Zscaler that are on a non-606 basis and then a transition to 606 all along.
Yeah. And so as part of 606, there's this issue of determining fair value and then making proper allocations. It's a challenge for everyone. And as you mentioned, when you came in, it was really about how do you put the systems in place and the processes in place,
right,
to scale.
Yeah.
How did you kind of begin to think about automating the RevRec process?
Yeah, so as you pointed out rightly, the fair value determination rules, changed. So early on, as we were, taking the journey of becoming a public company, Obviously spreadsheets were the best partner for us, as everybody else does. So for almost, I'll say a year and a half, we have been using massive spreadsheets to prove to our auditors the fair value allocation, the auditability of those, the internal controls around them, so on and so forth. But we always believed that, there would be a good solution. We were still in the discovery phase in terms of how do we automate that effort. So, a company named Ayara, it's early stage company that we started engaging. They were already engaged with some of our co-founders early on in a different setting. And, we started engaging with them to understand they had this thought of automating this effort. And we said, if you can prove to us and you can come close to or almost accurately perform the same allocation we are going through for our audit purpose in this tool, we are all game for you. And, as Zscaler's culture is, we go after newer technologies. We are ourselves, pioneer in a technology space. So we went with them for almost a 9-month POC. And recently we have signed up to make sure we can use the SSP analyzer to automate our efforts with respect to the fair value allocation.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce that. Zscaler is known as one of those rare companies that's known as being both innovative from a product point of view, but also very innovative internally in terms of your operations and your processes. And going back to what you just mentioned, you guys went through a very intense 9-month POC.
Yes.
Putting this SSP analyzer through its paces. Can you describe the SSP analyzer from Ayara? What does it do? What were you looking for, and what are you getting from it today?
Absolutely. Yeah, you pointed out exactly what we went through, primarily because we wanted to tie it to our quarterly reporting. So if you think about the 9-month is well thought out, because we want to make sure we start immediately after our new year, run it for the quarterly reportings, and be that in place before we get to our next year end. And so we wanted to make sure that it went through the same rigor that we go through the audit process for those 3 quarterly reportings, parallel process our data using our existing process, and then run it again in the Ayara tool to make sure the outcomes are absolutely the same. So there were early differentiations of the methodology, and some we refined and some they refined, and that's how we went through and made sure that the POC is successful before we sign up. Generally, SaaS vendors, they have a very position of selling, and you do buy it without a lot of POC. Zscaler itself sells a lot of POC-based customers because we want them to be successful. That was the same methodology. We partnered with Ayara to make sure we are successful when we are out of the door. And the SSP analyzer itself, as you pointed out, we sell a lot of bundles. We sell a lot of SKUs, which most of the successful software companies would be doing, which includes implementation services, premium support, types of services that we provide. We also provide our customers to ramp with us over a certain period of time. We also sometimes provide them future benefits with respect to if they were to come and add more features to their offering. So all these issues eventually need to be captured in terms of the fair value allocation, and that is where the complexity was when we were running it through the spreadsheet models. And that's what the biggest solution that we were getting, and that's why we embarked and made sure that we can get there, test it, and implement it.
Yeah, so in those complicated ramp deals, it gets very difficult, not just from the initial booking, but as the customer scales up, their usage and consumption of everything that you're offering, professional services, product, et cetera, you then have to go back and make all those changes, right, in the allocation tables. How well have you been able to automate that kind of continuous change that takes place in those multi-year complex deals?
Yeah. So the main I'll say winner from the tool we signed up with Ayara was it has a out of the box NetSuite integration, right? So as we were completing our order bookings, as customers move on, if they come back and buy more and all, the tool already has identified the original deal, and it is tying the next deal alongside the original deal. So it becomes a continuous improvement process, or I'll say continuous update process, because the tools are talking to each other. And as we are completing the order booking process in NetSuite, it is getting reported into Ayara, and we are able to use that. So yeah, that's something that we were very big on. We don't want to write customizations for ourselves. We want to stay away from it. We're on a very lean operation, and that was one of the benefits we got.
So one level of finance nirvana, if that can be described, is a way to synchronize what's happening between finance and sales operations. So as you're describing selling complex deals, how do you give your sales execs the agency to sell those complex deals, customized deals, and then from a finance point of view, maintain the control and visibility that you need to have when you go to sign the audited financials and report to the SEC. From a systems and a process point of view, how do you get that synchronization and provide that kind of flexibility and control at the same time?
Right. Yeah, great question. That's kind of like the biggest challenge if you speak to any CRO and CFOs separately. When they bring together, they'll say, yeah, we are great partners. You bring them separate, they'll say, you know what, I always put a deal and, they reject. And the CFO will say, I always get a deal that is always a money loser. So that is definitely one area. And as, companies are selling solutions that are focused to customers, the structures of the deal are to be structured to the customer and not to the iron fist of finance. That's what we believe. And we have early on, we have used human intelligence because, there were not that many tools that are catered more towards, revenue intelligence in an automated fashion. What we have now started looking through the processes is to make sure that how can we bring revenue intelligence back at the quoting stage. So if you are selecting certain BOMs and what are you trying to build for the customer to serve the customer in the right way, does it make sense for us? Discounting was always the case to control, but that was only the portion of what the discounting would be done with respect to whether I want to sell or not. What will it do to revenue, gross margin, and those things, especially on a revenue attributed basis in a SaaS model that we care about, was yet being done on a manual basis or a deal by deal basis. And if you wish to scale, that cannot be the case. You need to provide intelligence right there when the sales rep is building the BOM. And so that's something we are really excited about. We are exploring more, and we have a path that we want to put together where the revenue intelligence that Ayara has is going to talk to CPQ, which is what also is their out of box functionality that we want to explore and use to provide intelligence right at the doorstep for the sales organization.
So very specifically from a finance point of view, by having a view into the quoting process as quotes and BOMs are being added, what does that give you in terms of control over a quarter, quarterly results, or how you incentivize account execs? What does that really give you in terms of fine-grained controls?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and one of the closely monitored process in any company. How are you tracking revenue forecasting for that quarter, right? And that's the biggest question for any CFO during the quarter. Is it guidance, compared forecast, board plan? How are you, putting it all together? Especially for the deals that are happening right in the middle of the quarter. In SaaS, you have a base, you run with the base. but then you do add newer deals during the quarter, especially sometimes in the middle of the quarter. And you want to make sure that is the case that you are capturing. So we are using this intelligence in our thought process to make sure we can provide at the point intelligence of our forecast that can help our CFO make sure that the estimates that they are making using spreadsheets today are actually based more on a deal by deal assessment basis. That is the value proposition that we will get from this.
Yeah, and so presumably that also then feeds into budgeting and planning, because then you can actually see what's the cash picture going to look like over time, almost in real time.
Yeah, and more so from cash, I would also say, that would be our next stage, like scenario planning. Like if I were to distribute linearity across the 12 months, and I can execute the deals of linearity with sales in terms of when these deals will land, we can more accurately predict what the next year revenue or a year after would look like, which would be feeding into our budget planning model. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you have this term and kind of concept that you guys have embraced internally of business linearity.
Yes.
Describe that a little bit. What does that mean, and how do you put that in action?
Absolutely. In the old school, you get the software deal, you deliver the keys, you recognize the revenue, you move on. Obviously there is some PS. In SaaS, the value is linearity. The sooner you get the deal in the quarter, the more revenue you have for the quarter. So linearity is extremely important. It provides us the health of business. We can see how the pipeline is converting into business, how soon it is converting. And that linearity poses a challenge as well. As much as we love it, it poses a challenge to see how much revenue will it impact for the current quarter and the coming quarters. And that's where the revenue intelligence is important to us to make sure we can understand the linearity, convert it into revenue when the coding process is taking place, not afterwards once it is booked in NetSuite, and also make sure that it properly flows into our forecast for the current quarter.
Terrific. Well, Jugna, this has been really enlightening, very insightful. You guys are doing some really exciting work, and I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks everyone for joining us, and your details are available, I think, in the networking, so if people want to reach out, I'm sure they can.
Yes.
So thanks everyone, and this concludes our session. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I really wish you good luck for the session and the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thanks.